I've gathered 6 of the most popular 14-inch gaming laptops on the market to help you narrow down your options if you're looking for something portable with great performance, and most importantly, solid battery life. Quick disclaimer, I wasn't able to source every 14-inch gaming laptop available. That would have taken us an eternity to test. So we're just working with what we have over here. As always, links to these will be in the description down below. Now, laptop pricing this past year has been all over the place, and they've unfortunately gotten more expensive. While these models did come out in 2025, I think they still hold up strongly against what's about to launch in 2026, especially since we've already seen 2026 models coming in at even higher prices than last year. So what do we have here? Let's start with the Asus TUF A14. This is essentially the budget-friendly alternative to the Zephyrus G14. It's the lowest priced laptop in this roundup and offers impressive performance for the money. While this one features an RTX 4060 laptop GPU, it's paired to AMD's Strix Point CPU based on their current Zen 5 architecture. I also should point out that the 4060 version goes on sale frequently, down to almost $1,200 in most cases. But if you're looking for an RTX 5060, that thing is substantially a lot more. Next up, we have the Acer Helios Neo 14 AI. This one features Intel's Arrow Lake Ultra 9 285H CPU paired with an RTX 5060, and it comes in at around $1,699. Then we have the ROG Zephyrus G14. This one needs no introduction. It's ROG's flagship 14-inch gaming laptop. It comes with AMD's Ryzen AI 9 HX370, just like the TUF A14, but this one's paired with an RTX 5070 Ti. Moving on, we have the Acer Predator Trident AI. I mean, seriously, what is up with brands slapping AI on every laptop? Now, this isn't anything special. It's not designed specifically for AI workloads. All these laptops can do that. It's getting frustrating, to be honest. But anyways, it is one of the thinnest laptops in this roundup, but what's really interesting is its unique spec configuration. It features Intel's Lunar Lake CPU with almost half the thread count compared to the rest of the contenders, but it's paired to an RTX 5070 laptop GPU. This one comes in at a whopping $2,500. I'm really curious to see how this stacks up against everything else here. Next up, we have the Razer Blade 14. Again, this essentially is a spec refresh. It features AMD's Strix Point AI 9 365 CPU paired with an RTX 5070 laptop GPU. And you might think that this is the most expensive laptop in this roundup, but it isn't. That title goes to the HP ZBook Ultra G1A. What makes it so special? Well, it features AMD's Strix Halo Ryzen AI Max Plus Pro 395 APU with 120 gigabytes of memory. Yeah, I'm really stoked to test this thing out and find out if it deserves that insanely expensive price tag. I think the best way to approach this video is by ranking these laptops by tiers based on each segment. So things like build quality, keyboard and trackpad, port selection, displays. We'll get to the performance segment later, but the majority of this video is going to be based on at least my user experience with how it's like to handle these laptops on an everyday basis. So S tier is the absolute best, followed by A, B, and C, which is sort of the least impressive thing about these laptops. Let's start with build quality and design, starting with the Asus TUF A14. Now, the design of this laptop hasn't changed all that much from the previous generations. You still get the simple TUF logo tucked away on the corner over here, and the rest of the laptop is finished in this matte black finish. It's, again, a combination of metal and plastic components, and overall, the build quality, it feels pretty solid. I'd say it looks and feels slightly better, if not actually a little bit more better than the Acer Neo 14 that I'll talk about later. It also is very compact, coming in really close to the ROG Zephyrus G14 in terms of size and weight at just 3.2 pounds or 1.46 kilos. The hinge opens all the way up to 180 degrees flat, and it's also very stiff, not super wobbly. The power supply is similar in size to the G14, but it's slightly more power hungry at 200 watts, and it uses the same slim reversible jack to charge the laptop, and it features fast charge. Moving on to the Acer Helios Neo 14 AI, and well, the design is kind of the opposite of minimalism that the TUF offers, and honestly, it hasn't changed compared to the previous generation. I think Acer has been recycling the chassis for the past 3 years. You certainly do get, all sorts of gamery aesthetics like the Predator logo on the lid that's customizable through the software, plus some laser etched markings here and there. This thing is also a fingerprint magnet, and the chassis uses a lot of plastic materials. In fact, I do find the edges of the Neo 14 just a tad too sharp. You can certainly tell that they've also cut corners with the bezels here. It's just simple plastic, and yeah, the build quality is certainly not the greatest. It's the least impressive thing about this laptop in this roundup. It weighs slightly more than the TUF A14 at 4.15 pounds, or roughly 2 kilos, and dimensions-wise, it's thicker than the TUF, and it also has slightly more depth due to the small extension at the back right over here that houses the cooling system. Now, the Neo also has the biggest power brick in this roundup at 230 watts, but the cable is really long, so that's a bonus. The Zephyrus G14 is the smallest, thinnest, and the lightest laptop in this roundup, coming in at just 0.64 inches thin, and it's just 3.3 pounds or 1.5 kilos. And the design has pretty much remained consistent for the past few generations. The chassis is made out of CNC milled aluminum, and I still appreciate the small details like how this top lid is magnetized, so it gives you a nice satisfying sound when you close it. The hinge is still a bit wobbly. I wish ASUS just tweaked that a little bit, but I do appreciate the thinner bezels of the display. You get the signature sliding on the lid that can be customized through Armoury Crate, and it comes in two colors. There's Eclipse Gray and Platinum White, which is what I have over here. It comes with a slim power adapter using ASUS's reversible slim power jack at 180 watts, and it also supports fast charging. The Trident 14 AI is arguably Acer's biggest shift in the design department compared to the previous generations. I mean, sure, it's an all matte black laptop, but they've simplified the styling. You only get the Predator logo that's RGB lit on the front cover. This one, unfortunately, picks up a lot of fingerprints, but it's not as bad as the Neo 14. Build quality is really good. It is an all aluminum chassis, and every nook and corner, it just feels super sturdy, except for one thing. The lid, for some reason, produces some crunching noise every time when I open and close it. Here, take a listen. But that said, I do love the super thin profile at just 0.71 inches, and it's about 3.5 pounds, or roughly 1.6 kilos. The power brick is pretty slim. It's a 140 watt adapter that charges a laptop via USB Type-C, which did result in a few complications with performance, and also something major happened as I was filming this, but more on that later. Switching gears to Razer, I mean, I don't think they've been innovating on the design front with the Blade 14, at least for the past few years. This one isn't anything different from the past. You still get the matte black finish, unibody design CNC chassis with the same sharp, edgy corners. And trust me, they do get uncomfortable when you're typing on it for longer periods of time. It also attracts a lot of fingerprints, so that's something to keep note of. But that being said, the build quality is one of the best in this roundup, and that's pretty much on par with something like the G14, thanks to the unibody chassis that I mentioned earlier. The power adapter is fairly compact, and I'm so happy to see Razer ditching that braided cable for something more, standardized. It's a lot easier to work with. And they also made the chassis slightly thinner compared to the previous generation thanks to the revamped vapor chamber cooling system. Finally, we have the HP ZBook Ultra G1A. Now, this isn't really marketed as a gaming laptop. HP themselves call it a workstation PC, and the looks certainly justify that. I love the simple design that just fits in within any environment. I also appreciate the rounded corners and the smoother edges. It's just easier to type with, and it's also easier to lug around. The Meteor silver color doesn't pick up any fingerprints either, and the build quality is superb because the chassis is made out of aluminum and it has some serious heft to it as well. The Z height is only 0.71 inches and it weighs around 3.5 pounds. The power adapter is nice and slim. It's a 140 watt unit and it powers a laptop via USB Type-C. So for my tier list in terms of build quality, the G14, the Blade 14, the HP ZBook Ultra, they all get S tier status, followed by the Acer Trident AI. That gets A tier. I just knocked out some points due to that creaking hinge noise. The TUF A14 gets B tier, and finally the Neo 14 AI gets C tier. Now, taking a look at keyboard and trackpads, I'm going to start with the TUF A14. One of my favorite features of this laptop is the inclusion of a precision glass trackpad. It feels super smooth and delivers an experience that you'd expect from a premium Windows laptop. The primary left and right clicks have nice satisfying clicks. It's well defined. The keys have great travel without any play, and I like the way how they bottom out. It has very satisfying tactile feel. I'm not a fan of the typography on these keycaps, and It doesn't feature RGB lighting, but that's okay. The Neo 14, in summary, is the opposite of what you get with the Tough. The switches, they just feel mushy, they lack definition. I wouldn't call this the best keyboard out of the bunch, but it's satisfactory. There are some dedicated keys on the right-hand side that let you access Predator Sense. You have mic mute and playback controls, though I did wish if it had the ability to quickly adjust the volume, but those are programmed in the secondary function keys. The RGB lighting is nice and bright. It's 3-zone only. The trackpad is okay. It features a plastic surface, so it's not as smooth as the Tough A14. And I also want to mention that if I were to give an award to a laptop with the most number of stickers, it's most certainly the Neo 14. I mean, look, Acer wants you to know that it has an Intel CPU, an NVIDIA GPU, it's display HDR certified, it's got, 120 Hz display, and it has a summary sticker over here along with iSafe certification. I mean, why? Why do we need all these stickers? I think Acer is using the same recipe over and over again with their gaming laptops. I haven't seen any improvements with the build quality, the keyboard, the trackpad over the past few years. And that's a big miss, especially when you compare it again to something like the Tough A14. Now, the G14's keyboard feels pretty solid with a good amount of travel distance. The keys, they get the job done for both gaming and productivity-focused tasks. Now, when you combine that with a really nice and massive precision glass trackpad, it is a really nice experience to use this laptop. The inputs also feel nice and snappy and responsive, so that's what ultimately leads to a better overall user experience. I will say, I'm not a fan of the typography on these keycaps. I feel like it kind of deviates from that minimalistic design that it offers, but again, that's just a small nitpick from my end. Probably most people won't care about that, but yeah, just want to bring it up. It does feature RGB lighting, but it clashes with the white keys. So if that's something that you're into, maybe consider getting the Eclipse Gray model. Now, the Trident 14 has a much sturdier keyboard than the Neo 14, and it features 1.7 millimeters of key travel. It seems like Acer has tuned these switches to deliver a smooth and satisfying typing experience. It's still not as good as the Tough or the G14, but something unique about this keyboard is that it features mini LED per key RGB, and the result is substantially brighter brightness output. The out-of-the-box lighting effect unfortunately cheapens the premium vibe this thing is going for, but you can switch that to static through Predator Sense. Now, shifting to the trackpad, this one is pretty unique compared to the rest of the laptops over here. So Acer has opted for a large one-piece haptic glass trackpad. It's kind of like what you get with MacBooks, and they've executed it, I would say 80%. The feedback is pretty strong. It has these subtle illuminated borders to separate the touch points. They've also included an active stylus supporting AES 2.0, USI 2.0, and MPP 2.5 protocols. It is made out of metal, but weirdly, it only works on the trackpad and not this screen. And to be honest, this whole combination is a joke. It barely is responsive. The palm rejection is absolutely horrible. I don't even know why someone would use something like this with a trackpad. It makes no sense. You're better off getting a dedicated, Wacom tablet or something like that. Plus, there is no storage for the stylus either, so you're easily going to lose this. Now, the Blade 14's standout feature is certainly the chroma lighting that comes with the keyboard. It's probably the best looking RGB setups in this roundup, but the keys, they unfortunately still feel shallow and they lack feedback. Again, it's the same design as the previous generation with no improvements. The glass trackpad on this is super smooth and it's pretty responsive, and I haven't had any issues like I did with the Blade 16, so that's certainly a positive. Finally, there's the HP ZBook Ultra. They've kept the interior space pretty simple. I do like the contrast between the palm rest area and the keycaps. I do find the typography on these keys just a bit too big, but that's a small nitpick. Rest aside, the typing experience is fantastic with great travel, and the keys, they stay in place without any play. The LED backlighting is pretty basic. You do get a fingerprint sensor integrated into the power button. Now, because this is a workstation class laptop, HP has designed the keyboard to be spill resistant, so that's certainly a neat piece of mind to have. And this trackpad, man, it is awesome. It's precision glass, but I think HP has tuned it so well. The clicks are well defined. Overall, I think the experience is just so good using Windows. I think this is arguably one of the best trackpads that I've encountered on a Windows laptop. So far, to classify the keyboard and trackpads in my tier list, the HP ZBook Ultra gets S tier, followed by the Asus TUF A14, the Acer Trident 14 AI, and Zephyrus G14 as A tier. The Blade 14 gets B tier just because the keys, I haven't seen any improvement, unfortunately. And finally, the Neo 14 AI gets C tier. Now, all these laptops come loaded with ports. If you need USB Type-A 10 gigabits per second, Type-C 10 gigabits per second, HDMI 2.1, all these laptops tick those boxes. The G14, the TUF A14, and the Neo 14 and Trident 14 come with micro SD card readers. I'm not sure how useful that is for gamers, but it would have been nice if they replaced it with a full-size Type-A port. I do want to mention that the micro SD card reader on the Trident 14 is ludicrously slow. I don't know why. It's not a UHS 2 card reader, so yeah. Not sure why Acer, again, cut corners despite it costing so much. I was hoping to see a full-size SD card reader on the ZBook Ultra. That would have been nice, especially since it's geared towards professionals, but unfortunately doesn't. The Intel-based laptops and the ZBook Ultra with Strix Halo come with Thunderbolt 4 support. So overall, this is how I would classify the port selection in my tier list. Now, one of the things that I appreciate about laptops is the inclusion of a webcam. A lot of people use them for virtual meetings, and so you want to have something that, looks nicer. And in my testing, the ZBook Ultra had the best image quality. It's really sharp with excellent dynamic range, and it auto exposes for this yellow truck really well. The Trident 14 AI, the TUF A14, and the G14 has the worst image quality. It just looks desaturated. It just is kind of unusable. The Blade 14 is pretty good, although it does shift the image to a cooler tone. The same goes with the Neo 14. It's decent, but it has that magenta look to it. So this is how I would classify the webcams on these laptops. Now, the built-in speakers on these laptops get the job done, but there are some models here that stand out among the rest. And in my opinion, the laptop with the best sounding speakers, hands down, goes to the ROG Zephyrus G14. They're front-facing drivers, and they just sound so good. The bass is well-defined, the trebles, they're nice and sharp. It's also a really well-balanced output, and it's also pretty loud too. Followed by the ZBook Ultra. This thing also features front-facing drivers, and they sound pretty close to the G14, but it just lacks that extra bass. The Blade 14, while featuring front-facing drivers, didn't exactly meet my expectations. It lacks bass, and most importantly, the output is very weak. So 100% volume on this is close to 50% on the ZBook Ultra and the G14. So that just goes to show how much work that HP and Asus have put into their chassis. So that leaves us with the Trident 14, the Neo 14, and the TUF A14, and they sound okay. They're all bottom-facing drivers, and they're not the greatest. There's absolutely no bass. It sounds muffled. Specifically, this Trident 14, for some reason, it sounds like the sound is just trapped within the chassis. So yeah, it's just a really weird feeling when you're listening to this laptop. So this is how I would classify the speakers on these laptops. Moving on to the displays. All these laptops come with 16:10 aspect ratio screens. But one of the things that I've noticed with laptops, especially this past year, is that manufacturers have shifted from IPS or mini LED offerings to OLED. In this case, all of these laptops feature 3K 120Hz OLED panels, with the exception of the TUF A14. This one surprisingly still features a Quad HD Plus 165Hz IPS display. Now, OLED is superior in offering rich colors with those inky blacks, and obviously the trade-off is overall peak brightness output, which I'll talk about later. Not to mention, they're super glossy. They're just impossible to view outdoors. So that is something to consider when you're shopping for a laptop. They're all awesome for gaming, but honestly, these new models did scale back on the refresh rate department compared to the previous generation. For example, the Blade 14 over here from 2024 featured a Quad HD Plus 240Hz IPS panel, while this year they went back to 120Hz. And trust me, you will immediately notice a difference between the two screens. The other trade-off that you're going to notice is brightness output, and the glossy screens really don't help that much. So in this roundup, the brightest one actually goes to the TUF A14, but that shouldn't be surprising since it's using that good old IPS technology. The OLED options here, while being super color accurate and all, only max out to about 400 to 428 nits of peak SDR performance. It is a weird transition seeing everything going from OLED. I should also mention, PWM flicker is a thing. The moment you go to OLED, they're all going to exhibit it. So if you are sensitive to that, none of these laptops are going to solve that issue. So if I were to rank these displays, the TUF A14 gets S tier just because it's faster, it's brighter, and also you get a matte screen, which is certainly a bonus, while the rest just fall into the A-tier category. One of the trade-offs when you switch to a 14-inch gaming laptop is you give up upgradability, because a lot of manufacturers, they're trying to cram in as much as performance, a lot of advanced cooling systems into these super thin chassis. So it's very hard to actually find laptops with accessible memory slots or even 2 or 3 M.2 slots for storage expansion. So unfortunately, all these laptops feature onboard memory. Some of them cap out at 32 gigabytes, while others only cap out at 16 gigabytes. So basically what you configure is what you get. I am a little bit disappointed with the Blade 14 because the 2024 version had accessible memory modules and you were able to configure with up to 96 gigs of RAM. But in this case, with the 2025 model, it's soldered and you can only configure it with up to 64 gigabytes, which is still a good amount of memory, but I kind of wish it had that upgradable option. I'm going to give an exception to the ZBook Ultra because this thing has 128 gigabytes of memory and it's shared between the CPU and the GPU. That's thanks to the Strix Halo architecture, and HP does offer it in 64 and 96 gig options, so I don't think there's a reason to actually upgrade beyond that. For storage expansion, really the only 2 laptops that have 2 M.2 slots is the TUF A14 and the Neo 14 AI. Speaking of storage, all these laptops come equipped with Gen 4 NVMe SSDs. The Neo 14 has the fastest drive, which is ironic considering it cleanly beats its much more expensive sibling, the Trident 14. They all perform really well with the exception of the TUF A14. Now, this is likely due to their use of a mid-tier SN560 SSD from Western Digital, but for the price, it's pretty darn respectable. All right, let's get into performance. Before I dive any deeper into the metrics, remember that we're comparing a variety of CPU and GPU configurations, and the performance comparison, it shouldn't be taken as apples to apples in any way. There's almost a $1,500 delta between the cheapest laptop that's over here and the most expensive one. And the GPUs range from an RTX 4060 all the way to an RTX 5070 Ti, and we have a Radeon GPU as well. So I would look at this as sort of a template for what you're shopping for based on your budget, and of course, what works best for you. As always, these laptops are set to their highest performance mode. Now, power plays a key role when it comes to CPU-focused tasks. The more power you feed the CPU, the faster the results. But there is an exception here. The Strix Halo AI Max Plus Pro 395 in the ZBook Ultra comes out ahead in multi-core performance despite only drawing 70 watts compared to the rest of the laptops averaging between 60 and 100 watts. Honestly, bravo to AMD for creating this beast of an APU. The worst performer in these set of tests is undoubtedly the Acer Trident 14 AI with the Lunar Lake 288B processor. I mean, we all saw this coming, right? There's no chance for it to compete with the rest of the laptops boasting twice the thread count. Plus, it also is running at only 36 watts. It gets cleanly beaten by the Neo 14 AI that costs $800 less. But hey, maybe we can expect great battery life from the Trident. But more on that later. Now, the TUF A14 puts some very impressive numbers. Remember, this is the least expensive laptop in this roundup, and it performs just as fast as the G14, the Blade 14, and even the Neo 14. For Photoshop and Lightroom tasks, the ZBook Ultra dominates. It's incredibly fast when it comes to exporting photos, although I do wonder how this would fare against Apple's M5 chip. But maybe that's a topic to explore for another day. For GPU accelerated workloads, all these laptops perform pretty well with the 5070 Ti and the G14 taking the lead. But I have to say that TUF A14 isn't giving up despite running a 40 series GPU. It's almost neck and neck with the rest. Do note that Blender doesn't look like it's optimized for the Radeon 8060S in the ZBook Ultra. And if we switch over to creator-focused apps like Resolve and Premiere, opting for a faster GPU obviously yields much better export times. In this case, the G14 with the 5070 Ti is the overall winner here. AMD's AI Max Plus 395 in the ZBook puts up a decent fight here, but it certainly needs more optimization, especially with Premiere. And remember, by default, 32 gigabytes of memory is allocated to the GPU, leaving 96 gigs for the CPU. Switching to gaming, for the most part, all these laptops ran without any issues, and each manufacturer has allocated more than 100 watts to the GPU, with the exception of the TUF A14 that ran at 93 watts, and the Radeon 8060S and the ZBook Ultra that drew about 70 watts. But in a nutshell, if you're in the market for the fastest 14-inch gaming laptop, look no further than the ROG Zephyrus G14. I also think it offers the best bang for the buck here when compared to the Trident 14 AI and the Blade 14, both of which cost $200 to $300 more. Now, if you don't have G14 levels of budget, honestly, the Neo 14 with the RTX 5070 is not bad. For $1,700, which is a good $700 less than the G14, it delivers incredible performance. And you'll notice how it almost ties with the Trident 14 that costs a solid $1,000 more. Just don't forget the compromises you'll make with build quality. Now, there were some issues with the Trident 14 while gaming. It actually consumes battery power during gameplay, and this is likely due to the fact that it uses USB-C for its primary power source, which is capped at a lower wattage than other similarly equipped laptops, so it is something to be aware of. The 4060 in the TUF A14 puts up a good fight. It's not too far off from the Neo 14 in some titles. Remember, a lot of these 8GB GPUs, with the exception of the 5070 Ti, which has 12 gigs, are VRAM limited when you push high resolutions at higher presets. Okay, about the ZBook Ultra, it's not too bad, all things considered. It doesn't feature an ultra high-end gaming focused GPU, let alone it's not a gaming laptop. But the fact that you can still push some pretty respectable frame rates while pulling just 70 watts is a testament to AMD's brilliance with this architecture. What about thermal performance? For CPU-intensive workloads, the coolest among them all was the ZBook Ultra. Again, proving the efficiency pillar of Strix Halo. The Blade 14 was the warmest despite Razer's effort in integrating an advanced vapor chamber cooling system with a new Honeywell thermal interface gel. The Trident 14 AI shouldn't be a surprise here since the 288V Lunar Lake chip is only consuming about 36 watts and it doesn't put out a ton of heat. But when we switch gears to gaming, that really pushes the limits of these cooling systems in these super slim and compact chassis. And again, the Blade was the warmest while the rest were pretty close to each other. The loudest among them all were definitely the Acer laptops. They just sound like jet engines. The quietest, and it's no surprise here, it's a ZBook Ultra and the TUF A14. For lighter workloads like web browsing or doing anything productive that isn't too resource hungry in balance mode, here's how they stack up against one another. I guess the last thing to cover here is battery life. After all, these are super portable gaming beasts, and all of them are packed with 72 to 76 watt-hour cells. So for lighter web browsing tasks, the TUF A14 comes out on top, delivering almost 14 hours of runtime. For streaming video on YouTube, for example, again, this TUF A14 is just really, really good. Now, I wasn't expecting the ZBook Ultra to perform so poorly, but I think I have an explanation for that. You see, Strix Halo's playback engine isn't tuned for efficiency, and the AI Max Plus Pro 395 chip here uses 16 Zen 5 cores, not a blend of Zen 5 and Zen 5C cores like Strix Point that you'll find on the TUF A14, the G14, and the Blade 14. I was expecting the Trident 14 AI with the Lunar Lake 288V processor to deliver better results here since it's designed for power efficiency. But I guess Acer missed the mark here in terms of tuning that chip for this platform. Switching over to gaming, the G14 lasted the longest, delivering close to 2 hours of runtime with Cyberpunk, while others weren't too far off from each other. The ZBook, again, only lasted for about an hour. And if you're wondering about performance on battery, well, the good news is that all these laptops perform pretty well when they're unplugged. On average, you lose about 25 to 30% when performing CPU-intensive workloads. Here's how Photoshop runs plugged in versus unplugged. The ZBook Ultra and the Blade 14 performed poorly here. It could be a software optimization issue, but again, it's certainly something to consider. Are we close to getting Apple Silicon levels of performance on battery life with these Windows laptops? Not quite, but we're slowly getting there. So I know this was a long video, but which 14-inch gaming laptop should you buy? If you're looking for the absolute best all-around package, the ROG Zephyrus G14 is the clear winner. It's the smallest, it's the lightest, and it delivers the best gaming performance with the RTX 5070 Ti. The build quality is also top-notch, the battery life is excellent, and it offers the best bang for your buck when you consider what you're getting for the price. Now, if budget is a concern and you want incredible value, the TUF A14 is just hard to beat. It's the cheapest laptop in this roundup, yet it punches well above its weight class. You get solid gaming performance, excellent battery life, the best in the roundup actually, and a surprisingly premium experience with that precision glass trackpad and a really nice keyboard. Sure, it still has an RTX 4060, but for the price, I think it's an absolute steal. For those who want a middle ground, the Acer Neo 14 AI at $1,700 offers fantastic performance that nearly matches laptops costing $1,000 more. It's a solid choice if you can overlook the cheaper build quality and the louder fans. The Blade 14 is a pretty good laptop, but honestly, I just don't find anything interesting about it anymore. It's the same chassis, the keyboard feels meh. The performance is pretty good, but it still runs really hot. I don't know if I would actually spend that kind of money for a laptop. I would easily actually pick the G14 over the Blade 14 all day, any day. And that leaves us with the Triton 14 AI. Man, where do I start? This thing was a complete slap in the face for Acer. They missed a lot of things with this laptop. First, I think it was that combination of a Lunar Lake CPU with the RTX 5070. I thought that we would get better battery life, but really not the case. It just performs like the rest of these laptops here. The performance, especially for CPU workloads, not that great. It's just the issues that I ran into when testing this laptop. I had a couple of BSODs. Even with a fully charged battery, it refused to boot up. I had to press the power button like 3 or 4 times for it to actually, get it up and running. And just before I started recording this video, it stopped, it absolutely refuses to take its own USB-C charger. And so now this thing is officially dead. Like there's no way for me to actually turn on this laptop. It has a dead battery. I tried using different USB-C chargers. None of them work. It absolutely does not deserve the $2,500 price tag that Acer is asking for. So it doesn't even deserve to be on this desk. So I'm just gonna set it aside. So that brings us finally to the HP ZBook Ultra G1A. This surprised me by a long shot. Now, this isn't a gaming laptop. HP doesn't market it as one, but if you're a creative professional who wants, I guess, something with great build quality, fantastic keyboard, trackpad, really nice screen, and of course, if you really want to get on that AMD Strix Halo architecture, it really offers amazing performance. It's just a glimpse into what AMD can achieve, and I'm excited to see where they take this technology into the future. The only issue is the price. It's $3,000, which is the most expensive in this roundup, and it's not for everyone out there, but I'm sure there's a small group of people that this thing's designed for. But at the end of the day, these 2025 laptops still hold up incredibly well against what's launching in 2026. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, we're going to start to see prices creeping up this year with these newer laptops that are right around the corner. And I feel like this might be a good time to pick one up, especially if you find them on sale. As always, links to all these laptops will be in the description down below. Let me know which one you would pick in the comments. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. And don't forget to spend responsibly.